The book is divided into 4 parts: Something New, Exploring the Outward Mindset, Becoming More Outward, and Multiplying Mindset Change. The preface asks readers to think about people in their lives whom they admire and respect, such as favorite coworkers, best bosses, or people who inspire them. The preface suggests that a common trait among these admired individuals is that they make others feel seen and valued, implying that this is a key aspect of the outward mindset. The book aims to explore the concept of the outward mindset and provide guidance on how to cultivate it in personal and professional relationships. The Arbinger Institute is mentioned as the publisher of the book, indicating that the book is part of their work on mindset change and personal development. The book includes a list of stories, notes, and an index, suggesting that it is a comprehensive and well-researched guide to the outward mindset. The quote at the beginning of the book, "How much larger your life would be if yourself could become smaller in it," by G.K. Chesterton, sets the tone for the book's focus on personal growth and development. The book, The Outward Mindset, focuses on a characteristic admired in others, where a person's way of seeing and regarding their connections with others makes them feel valued and important. This characteristic is referred to as an outward mindset, which is different from a self-focused inward mindset, and is the biggest lever for change in individuals and organizations. The book aims to help readers become more outward in their work, leadership, and life, and to build more innovative and collaborative teams and organizations. The book is based on the author's experience over 3 decades of helping individuals and organizations, and reflects their latest work on mindset change. The book is composed of multiple real-life stories, most of which are from the author's clients, and every chapter is built around one or more such stories. Developing an outward mindset is a matter of learning to see beyond oneself, and the book aims to make this mindset change tangible to readers. The book is part of a series that includes Leadership and Self-Deception, and The Anatomy of Peace, the Kansas City Police Department SWAT team story. The story of Senior Sergeant Charles Chip Huth and the Kansas City Police Department, KCPD SWAT team, is used to illustrate a different approach, where the team's actions and behavior are focused on the task at hand, but also show a sense of awareness and consideration for the people involved. The story sets the stage for the rest of the book, which will explore the concept of an outward mindset and how it can be applied in different contexts. A SWAT team led by Chip was conducting a raid, and one of the team members, Bob, took an unusual approach by mixing baby bottles to calm down crying infants, which changed the entire scene and allowed the team to smoothly complete their task. This act of responsiveness was not typical in police work, but it was routine in Chip's squad, which had undergone a remarkable transformation. To understand this transformation, it's necessary to look at Chip's challenging background, including being born to an abusive father and a bipolar, schizophrenic mother, and experiencing poverty and instability in his childhood. Chip's father hated cops, which motivated Chip to become a police officer, and he joined the Kansas City Police Department, KCPD, in 1992. Chip rose through the ranks, becoming a SWAT sergeant in 2004, but at the time, he was more suited to leading a team with a similar mindset to his own, rather than changing it. Initially, Chip's approach was aggressive, and his team was known for being one of the most complained about units in KCPD, with a history of damaging property and mistreating suspects and their pets. However, something changed, and Chip's squad transformed into a team that prioritized responsiveness and de-escalation, as seen in the example of Bob mixing baby bottles, which became a routine part of their approach. Chip Huth's transformation. Chip, the leader of the SWAT squad, initially believed that his team's aggressive approach was necessary for success, despite the high rate of complaints and associated litigation costs. However, after a conversation with his 15-year-old son who described him as a robot, Chip began to question his methods and attitude, realizing that they were actually undermining his effectiveness and putting his team at risk. Around the same time, another officer, Jack Colwell, helped Chip see the truth about himself and his approach, which led to a journey of change and transformation for the SWAT squad. As a result of this transformation, the squad shifted from receiving 2 to 3 complaints per month, with many involving excessive use of force, to having no complaints filed against them in 6 years, with a significant reduction in costs for the department. The team also changed their behavior, no longer leaving personal property in shambles, shooting dogs, or engaging in other destructive behaviors, and instead focused on building cooperation with suspects and the community. The results of this new approach were astounding, with the SWAT squad recovering more illegal drugs and guns in the first 3 years than in the previous decade, and increasing cooperation from the community. Mark and Paul's healthcare company. The transformation was attributed to a new mindset, referred to as an outward mindset, which involves a different way of seeing and thinking, and was also adopted by Mark Belief and Paul Hubbard, co-CEOs of a highly respected healthcare company, who achieved significant growth and success using this approach. Mark and Paul's company had a 32% compound annual growth rate in top-line revenue and 30% in profitability over 5 years, and had successfully turned around over 50 healthcare facilities. Mark and Paul, leaders of a company that had successfully turned around 50 failing healthcare facilities, attributed their success to finding and developing leaders with the right mindset, specifically humility. According to Paul, humble leaders are able to see beyond themselves and perceive the true capacities and capabilities of their people, creating an environment that encourages their team to take on the primary responsibility for finding answers to challenges. The company's approach was met with skepticism by a potential investor who failed to comprehend how humble leaders could be the key to the company's success and ultimately walked away from a compelling investment opportunity. Mark, Paul, and their early partners had less than 10 years of experience in healthcare when they started their company. But they saw an opportunity to create a unique organization by applying a systematic approach to the principles presented in the book. The company's thesis was that poorly led and underperforming facilities could be turned around by helping the existing team see what was possible, rather than replacing the team members. In their experience, the company found that staff members who were identified as problems by outgoing leaders often became star performers under new leadership and a new approach, demonstrating that organizational improvement is a matter of changing mindset rather than getting rid of the wrong people. Paul emphasized that leaders fail when they come in with a predetermined vision and expect others to execute it, rather than helping people see and exercise their human agency and initiative. The company's approach focused on helping people see what was possible, rather than simply providing a vision and expecting others to follow. And this approach was key to their success in turning around failing facilities. The importance of mindset. The authors of The Outward Mindset aim to help individuals, teams, and organizations improve their performance by adopting a mindset that fosters collaboration, innovation, and responsiveness. The book is based on the idea that when people are free to execute their work without being limited by instructions, they can respond to changing situations more effectively and make a greater impact. The authors, Mark and Paul, learned this lesson early on while operating their first facilities, where they had to be adaptable and take responsibility for doing whatever was necessary in each situation. As they acquired more facilities, they needed leaders who could operate with an outward mindset, which involves being responsive to the needs of others and helping others to do the same. The book promises to provide an actionable, repeatable, and scalable way to transform personal, team, and organizational performance, and to help individuals see new and better ways to interact with others, both at work and at home. The authors believe that mindset drives and shapes all that we do, and that it is the foundation for how we engage with others and behave in every moment and situation. The book challenges the traditional behavioral model, which suggests that behaviors drive results, and instead proposes that mindset is the underlying driver of behavior and results. The authors argue that simply replicating the behaviors of successful people or organizations is not enough to achieve similar results, and that a deeper understanding of the underlying mindset is necessary for true transformation. The story of Mia, who attends a workshop on improving communication, illustrates the limitations of the behavioral model, as she learns new skills but may not necessarily adopt the underlying mindset that drives those behaviors. The effectiveness of new skills or behaviors in improving interactions with others depends on the underlying mindset and feelings towards those individuals. Mia's attempt to apply new skills in her conversations with Carl, A colleague she dislikes and distrusts may not lead to significant improvement if she doesn't genuinely feel differently about him. If Carl senses that Mia's new behaviors are superficial, he might become upset, leading to increased tension between them, and ultimately the new behaviors could result in worse outcomes. This scenario suggests that something deeper than behavior plays a crucial role in determining the success or failure of our interactions, and the behavioral model is incomplete and misleading. The behavioral model is also misleading because it doesn't account for the fact that people's behaviors are always a function of their mindset, which influences how they see their situations and possibilities. The mindset model, which considers both behavior and mindset, is a more comprehensive approach to understanding what drives behavior and achieving successful outcomes. The mindset model suggests that change efforts focused solely on behavior change are more likely to fail, whereas efforts that address both behavior and mindset are more likely to succeed. Studies by McKinsey & Company support this idea, finding that organizations that identify and address pervasive mindsets are 4 times more likely to succeed in organizational change efforts than those that overlook this stage. The story of Chip Huth and his SWAT squad illustrates how mindset influences behavior, as their prevailing mindset would not have led them to consider mixing baby bottles in the middle of an operation. The way people see and regard the world, including others, circumstances, challenges, opportunities, and obligations, shapes their behaviors and interactions with others. Research shows that individuals who focus on changing mindsets are 4 times more likely to succeed in effecting change than those who focus only on changing behavior. The mindset model versus the behavioral model. There are 2 different approaches to performance improvement. One that focuses on changing behavior without changing mindset, and another that focuses on changing mindset to drive behavior change. The first approach, known as the behavior push approach, is often unsuccessful in the long term, as people may resist changes to their behavior if their underlying mindset remains unchanged. Without a change in mindset, behavior change efforts may only result in compliant behavior, rather than committed behavior, which is necessary for significant improvement. In contrast, the leading with mindset approach focuses on changing mindset, which can lead to sustainable behavior change and improved results. This approach was illustrated by Chip, a SWAT team leader who focused on changing the mindset of his team members, leading to dramatic improvements in their behaviors and results. When mindset change occurs, people are more likely to think and act in ways that hadn't been imagined before, and are more likely to adopt new behaviors without needing to be prescribed. Louise Francesconi and the $100 Million Challenge. The story of Louise Francesconi, president of a legacy Howard Hughes company, is introduced as a precursor to exploring the mindset that makes sustainable behavior change possible. The mindset that enables this kind of change is the focus of the next chapter, which explores the concept of 2 different mindsets. The acquiring company's executives directed Louise and her leadership team to cut $100 million, which created tension within the team as each member focused on preserving their own part of the company. The team initially proposed token cuts in their operational areas, arguing that further cuts would be damaging, and suggested layoffs as the primary solution, with each member wanting the layoffs to come from others' parts of the business. Louise grew frustrated with the situation, knowing that the team had to find a way to cut $100 million, but was concerned about the impact on the team and the company. The problem was attributed to incentive structures, company metrics, career goals, and personal egos that kept people focused on themselves, leading to an inward focus that hindered progress. 2 incidents helped the team get unstuck. First, they began to consider the impact of layoffs on various groups, including employees, the union, family members, and the community, which led to a shift in their mindset and a commitment to finding alternatives to layoffs. The second incident involved pairing up team members to learn about each other's areas of the business and identify ways to help their colleagues preserve their budgets rather than cutting them. During these one-on-one meetings, team members began to offer to make cuts in their own areas to preserve key parts of their colleagues' areas, demonstrating a shift from an inward focus to a more collaborative and outward mindset. The Arbinger consultant played a key role in facilitating this shift by assigning the team members to work together and focus on helping each other, rather than just focusing on their own interests. Louise's executive team was tasked with cutting $100 million in costs, which initially led to a focus on individual self-preservation and an inward mindset, where team members prioritized their own interests and agendas. However, one executive's suggestion to fold his division into a colleague's, saving the company $7 million, marked a turning point towards an outward mindset, where team members prioritized the collective result and the organization's well-being. This shift in mindset enabled the team to work collaboratively and make innovative decisions, ultimately achieving the $100 million cost-cutting goal while improving the organization. The team's new way of working together became their standard mode of operation, leading to increased efficiency and effectiveness, such as reducing the time to set annual goals from a full day to just an hour. Over time, the team's outward mindset enabled them to double the business despite initial predictions of limited growth. The inward and outward mindsets. The inward mindset is characterized by behaviors that protect and advance individual interests, whereas the outward mindset is marked by behaviors that advance the collective result and prioritize the organization's goals. The two mindsets exist on a continuum, with organizations and individuals operating somewhere between the two extremes, and the practices, policies, and processes of an organization can either invite an inward or outward mindset. The concept of an outward mindset is introduced as a continuum, with 0 representing a completely inward mindset and 10 representing a completely outward mindset. In assessing their own organizations, most people rate themselves higher than they rate their organization, with individuals often rating themselves as 7s but their organization as 3s. This discrepancy highlights the problem of self-deception, where individuals may overestimate their own outward mindset. The objective is to move individuals and organizations further to the right on the mindset continuum, as this leads to improvements in accountability, collaboration, innovation, leadership, culture, and value to customers. A shift from an inward to an outward mindset, as seen in Louise Francesconi's executive team, enables people to consider better possibilities and see beyond their own self-interest. An outward mindset changes how people see, regard, and engage with others, leading to breakthroughs and new possibilities. Diagrams 7 and 8 illustrate the differences in how one behaves and engages with others depending on their mindset, with an outward mindset taking others into account and seeing them as people, and an inward mindset being self-focused and seeing others as objects. It's essential to distinguish between introspection and an inward mindset, as introspection can be done in a self-centered way, but it can also be done to understand one's connections with others, which is a key aspect of an outward mindset. This type of outward mindset introspection is crucial for organizations, as seen in the example of a healthcare company discussed in Chapter 1. The success of a company is directly tied to how its employees reflect on their interactions with others, becoming aware of and interested in the needs, objectives, and challenges of their coworkers and customers. A healthcare facility, which was struggling both clinically and financially, was led by an interdisciplinary team of department heads who had become inwardly focused due to years of poor management, leaving them blind to their impact on each other and their patients. The team's inward focus was challenged when an elderly Vietnamese patient, Ms. Tam, was admitted and became a problem due to her inability to communicate with the staff, leading to behavioral outbursts. A team member's outward mindset question, "What would it be like to be her?" sparked a change in the team's approach, leading them to consider Ms. Tam's perspective and find ways to make her stay more bearable and enriching. The team's newfound understanding and empathy led to creative solutions, such as providing Ms. Tam with familiar food and translation services, and eventually, the entire staff rallied to support her. This change in approach was made possible by the team's ability to see Ms. Tam as a person rather than an object, enabling them to exercise their best thinking and respond to her needs in a more compassionate and effective way. This principle is also illustrated by the story of Ivan Cornea and his father, William, who struggled with anger and violence. But the story is not fully developed in this section, suggesting that it will be explored further in the document. The key takeaway is that seeing people as people rather than objects enables better thinking and can lead to positive change, even in challenging situations. The story of Ivan and William Cornea. The story of Ivan and his father, William Cornea, illustrates the transformative power of an outward mindset, where an individual's behavior and thinking change dramatically after recognizing the impact of their actions on others. Ivan, who had grown up in fear of his father's violent outbursts, found himself mimicking his father's behavior when he beat a cow that had accidentally hit him in the eye with its tail. However, instead of reacting with anger, William chose to approach Ivan calmly and said, "Ivan, if you'll stop, I'll stop," marking a turning point in their relationship and William's behavior. From that moment on, William completely changed his ways, becoming a kind, gentle, and helpful person, and Ivan never forgot the lesson he learned that day. William's transformation was not just a change in behavior, but a fundamental shift in how he saw and thought about others, particularly his son, Ivan. This story highlights the idea that people are not objects to be treated as such, but rather as individuals with needs and feelings, and that recognizing this can be a powerful catalyst for change. The story of William Cornea is not an isolated incident, and the book The Outward Mindset will explore many more examples of how individuals and organizations can adopt an outward mindset and the benefits that come with it. Getting out of our own way. The book is divided into 3 parts, with Part 2 exploring the inward and outward mindsets in more depth, Part 3 detailing the outward mindset pattern, and providing a step-by-step blueprint for individuals and organizations to adopt an outward mindset. The section Getting Out of Our Own Way from the book The Outward Mindset explores why people often struggle to adopt an outward mindset despite its advantages. According to the authors, the primary obstacle to an outward mindset is not difficult circumstances or challenging people, but rather oneself, as individuals often get in their own way. The authors acknowledge that people may face various challenges, such as difficult bosses, critical spouses, or financial struggles which can lead to an inward mindset. However, they also share the story of Chris Wallace, who, despite facing his own challenges, was able to adopt an outward mindset with the help of a 17-year-old girl who taught him that his mindset was his choice. Chris Wallace's story begins with his life on the Santa Margarita Ranch, where he grew up feeling trapped and resentful towards his father, Nate Wallace, who had high expectations for him. Chris's desire for escape was fueled by his wealthy Uncle Dick's offer to take him to the East Coast to introduce him to new experiences and business opportunities, which Chris saw as a way to break free from his life on the ranch. The story of Chris Wallace serves as an example of how individuals can choose to adopt an outward mindset, even in the face of adversity, and how this choice can lead to positive outcomes. The story of Chris Wallace. Chris's father rejected an offer from Uncle Dick to help with their financial struggles, which led to Chris feeling resentful and trapped in his life. Over the next 2 years, Chris became increasingly distant from his father, performing only his required chores and escaping into books to cope with his emotions. The family's financial situation worsened, and Chris's father was forced to deed their large ranch to a neighbor in exchange for a smaller property, further humiliating Chris and fueling his anger. One evening, Chris witnessed his parents arguing, and his father struck his mother, triggering Chris's long-held resentment and causing him to grab his father's pistol and chase him out of the house. 2 months later, Chris's father took his own life with the same pistol, leaving Chris feeling a mix of emotions, including a sense of freedom. However, Chris soon became consumed by anger and blame towards his father, attributing all his problems and difficulties to his father's actions, including their economic struggles, his mother's hardships, and his own personal struggles. Chris's anger and resentment towards his father continued to affect him even in his sleep, with recurring dreams of his father abandoning him. The loss of his father and the family's hardships had a profound impact on Chris, leading to a deep-seated anger and sense of abandonment that continued to shape his life. Chris, a 21-year-old, had a habit of garnering sympathy by sharing the story of his father's suicide and its impact on his dreams. But his approach changed after a conversation with a 17-year-old girl named Anne. When Chris told Anne his story, she didn't offer sympathy. Instead, she chuckled and pointed out that Chris's father was dead and couldn't be responsible for the thoughts and dreams Chris was having, implying that Chris was responsible for his own thoughts and emotions. Anne asked Chris what he would say to his father if he could catch up to him, and Chris initially responded with anger and resentment. But Anne suggested that he apologize for hating and resenting his father, which Chris found difficult to accept. Anne's response, "He ruined his life, you're ruining yours," had a profound impact on Chris, making him realize that his father's actions were not the cause of his own suffering, but rather his own mindset and choices. Anne's response, "He ruined his life, you're ruining yours," had a profound impact on Chris, making him realize that his father's actions were not the cause of his own suffering, but rather his own mindset and choices. For 3 weeks after the conversation, Chris's father didn't appear in his dreams, and when he finally did, Chris took Anne's advice and apologized to his father in the dream, leading to a sense of closure and a newfound feeling of missing his father. This experience led Chris to a powerful conclusion. We're so convinced that how we think and feel about other people is caused by them. But a 17-year-old young woman taught me that this wasn't true. I see people the way I see them because of me. Chris acknowledges that his father made mistakes, including the horrible, terrible mistake of taking his own life. But he also recognizes that he has the power to choose how he thinks and feels about his father, and that he is responsible for his own emotions and well-being. Chris reflects on his past relationship with his father, realizing that he used to focus on his father's mistakes as a way to deny his own. But now he acknowledges his own mistakes and shortcomings in their relationship. Chris recognizes that he took his father for granted, didn't appreciate the burdens his father shouldered, and didn't try to understand his father's perspective, which led to misinterpretation and conflict. He understands that his father's decision to not let him go back east with Uncle Dick might have been motivated by his father's desire to spend more time with him during his final growing-up years rather than a lack of care. Chris identifies his main mistake as focusing solely on himself, which made him miss and misinterpret the needs and perspectives of those around him, including his father. The cost of an inward mindset. The text highlights the difference between an outward mindset and an inward mindset, where an outward mindset is characterized by being alive to and interested in other people's needs and objectives, and an inward mindset is marked by a lack of care for others' needs and objectives. When one has an inward mindset, they often focus on others' faults, real or imagined, to justify their lack of care, which can lead to a self-justifying and others-blaming narrative that comes at a great personal and social cost. The text illustrates the consequences of an inward mindset through a hypothetical situation involving a colleague named Lori, where not sharing helpful information with her can lead to a mindset shift away from an outward mindset. In the situation with Lori, if the person chooses not to share the information, especially if Lori has done something to make a situation harder for them in the past, their mindset may shift towards justifying their actions and blaming Lori, rather than taking an outward mindset approach and prioritizing the organization's success and their colleagues' well-being. When considering not sharing information with someone, such as Lori, an inward mindset can lead to distorted perceptions of that person, focusing on their flaws and justifying the decision not to help. This mindset involves creating a negative picture of the person, highlighting their annoying habits, unreliability, or laziness, in order to feel justified in not assisting them. With an inward mindset, individuals tend to zero in on anything that supports their decision, creating a self-justifying narrative that reinforces their choice. This mindset is similar to Chris's initial perspective on his father, where he blamed his father for all his problems and felt justified in his actions. However, when Chris shifted his focus from his own troubles to understanding his father's challenges, his mindset began to change, and he was able to break free from his negative perspective. This experience suggests that the most troubling areas of our lives are often those where we resist seeing the humanity of others and their needs, objectives, and challenges. By recognizing and resisting this inward mindset, Individuals can stop creating distorted perceptions of others and instead become more open, curious, and interested in their needs and challenges. In organizational settings, the inward mindset can lead to significant problems, including energy draining, time wasting, and silo creating behaviors, as individuals focus on justifying their choices rather than contributing to the overall results of the company. The inward mindset is a root cause of many workplace issues, and recognizing and addressing it can help individuals and organizations overcome these challenges and improve their relationships and productivity. Examples of inward mindset. The inward mindset is characterized by a focus on what one needs from others to achieve their objectives rather than considering the needs, objectives, and challenges of others. This mindset can be exhibited by individuals or entire organizations with potentially damaging results. A diagram is used to illustrate the inward mindset, with triangles pointing inward to represent the focus on one's own needs and objectives. The inward mindset can lead individuals to see their circumstances and execute their work in ways that justify their self-focus, ignoring the needs and challenges of others. An example from Arbinger's history illustrates how easily individuals can succumb to an inward focus, where the team was more concerned with winning a contract and the potential financial gain than with the needs of the client. The team was waiting to present a proposal to a committee and were feeling anxious about the outcome, with their objective being their own rather than the customer's. However, one team member recognized the inward mindset and pointed it out, suggesting that instead of focusing on winning the contract, they should focus on the opportunity to spend time with the committee and provide value to them. This shift in mindset allowed the team to approach the presentation with a more outward focus, considering the needs and challenges of the client rather than just their own. The inward mindset can be contrasted with the outward mindset, which involves considering the needs, objectives, and challenges of others, and seeking to provide value to them. The example from Arbinger's history highlights the importance of recognizing and overcoming the inward mindset in order to achieve success and build strong relationships with others. The Arbinger company had a pivotal experience in its early days when it shifted its focus from winning a contract to being helpful to the client, which ultimately led to winning the contract and likely ensuring the company's survival. This experience taught the company the importance of having an outward mindset, focusing on the needs and objectives of others rather than its own, and it has since worked to maintain this mindset. However, years later, Arbinger discovered that it had unwittingly adopted an inward mindset in a key part of its business, specifically in training internal partners within client organizations. The company realized that it was primarily focused on helping these internal partners become proficient in its own methods, rather than understanding the needs and objectives of the client organizations they worked for. This inward focus led Arbinger to question its approach and make significant changes to its business, including its structure, client engagement process, services, and success metrics. The company recognized that it had been operating with an outwardly nice inward mindset style, which can be mistaken for an outward mindset, but actually omits consideration of the needs and objectives of others. Arbinger has since made a conscious effort to identify and address its own inwardness, using the same principles it teaches to others to examine its own mindset and make necessary changes. The company's experience serves as a reminder that even organizations that prioritize an outward mindset can still fall into inward-focused patterns, and that ongoing self-reflection and adjustment are necessary to maintain a truly outward mindset. The outwardly nice, inward mindset style. The outwardly nice, inward mindset style refers to individuals who believe they are outwardly focused on others but are actually inwardly focused on their own needs and objectives. This mindset is often experienced by people in roles that involve doing things for others, such as healthcare and hospitality workers, educators, and caregivers. A personal anecdote by Joe Bartley illustrates this concept, where he realized he was doing activities with his children that he enjoyed rather than paying attention to their interests and needs. Joe's experience shows that even with good intentions, an inward mindset can lead to a lack of understanding and connection with others, as he was unaware that his daughter Anna did not enjoy playing basketball. The cost of an inward mindset includes wasted effort, lack of collaboration, low innovation, and employee disengagement due to boredom. In contrast, an outward mindset focuses on the impact on others and leads to a more engaged and collaborative work environment. The next chapter will discuss an outward mindset approach to work that can help individuals avoid the problems associated with an inward mindset. CFS2 and the San Antonio Spurs. The story of CFS2, a debt collection company, showcases the benefits of an outward mindset approach in business, where employees focus on helping clients rather than just collecting debt. CFS2's employees go above and beyond to assist their clients, from waking them up for job interviews to providing free services such as food stamps, childcare, and home repairs, all at no cost to the clients. This approach has led to remarkable results, with CFS2's collection rate being twice that of any other firm in the industry after just 3 years, and clients feeling helped and even financially rescued by the company. The outward mindset approach is not limited to external customers, but can also be applied within organizations to improve relationships and collaboration among peers, direct reports, and managers. The San Antonio Spurs, a successful NBA team, is cited as an example of an outward mindset organization where players and staff prioritize teamwork, selflessness, and relationship excellence over individual ego. Coach Greg Popovich attributes the Spurs' success to 4 key factors: recruiting for and building selflessness and teamwork, caring for players and staff as people, giving players and staff a voice, and achieving task excellence through relationship excellence. The Spurs' outward mindset culture creates a sense of obligation among players to build their skills and perform at their best, not just for personal gain, but to support their teammates and contribute to the team's success. The outward mindset approach is characterized by a focus on helping others achieve their objectives rather than just providing a product or service, and can be applied in various contexts to drive success and collaboration. The San Antonio Spurs' success can be attributed to their focus on relationship excellence, which enables them to achieve task excellence and sustainable, superior performance. The teams, coaches, and players demonstrate that people can achieve greater results when they commit to something bigger than themselves and prioritize the success of others. In contrast, most teams are filled with individuals focused on their own success, which hinders their ability to achieve sustained success. The outward mindset pattern. To move from an inward mindset to an outward mindset, a proven methodology is necessary, which involves a focus on the needs, objectives, and challenges of others. Individuals with an outward mindset take responsibility for their impact on others, including reports, customers, peers, and managers, and hold themselves accountable for their full impact on the organization. A pattern of working with an outward mindset involves 3 steps: seeing the needs, objectives, and challenges of others, adjusting efforts to be more helpful, and measuring and holding oneself accountable for the impact of their work on others. This pattern can be remembered using the acronym SAM. See others, adjust efforts, measure impact. Alan Mulally and the turnaround at Ford. The power of the outward mindset pattern is demonstrated in the turnaround of Ford Motor Company under the leadership of Alan Mulally, who was hired as CEO in 2006. Mulally's approach involved taking responsibility for the problems of the company and encouraging others to do the same, rather than blaming others or focusing solely on individual performance. The outward mindset pattern is illustrated in Diagram 12, which shows the interconnected relationships between individuals and their responsibilities towards others. Alan Mulally, the new CEO of Ford, introduced a management approach that had been successful for him at Boeing, which involved 2 weekly meetings, the Business Plan Review, BPR, and the Special Attention Review, SAR. During the BPR, the executive team would present charts showing performance against the company plan with color coding to indicate progress: green for on-plan, yellow for at risk, red for off-plan, and blue for changes from the prior week. Mulally emphasized the importance of having everyone involved, a clear plan, and knowing where the company stood on the plan, and posted 10 BPR rules on the wall, including people first, everyone is included, and respect, listen, help, and appreciate each other. Initially, the executives were resistant to the new approach, and despite the company's poor performance, they presented charts that were all coded green, indicating that they were meeting their targets. Mulally recognized that this was due to a culture of fear, where executives were reluctant to admit mistakes or weaknesses, and he worked to create a safe environment where they could present the truth. After several weeks of all green charts, Mulally interrupted a meeting to point out that the company was going to lose billions of dollars that year, and asked if there were any problems, but the team remained silent. Meanwhile, Mark Fields, who led Ford's operations in the Americas, was faced with a decision about whether to launch a new vehicle with a potential problem, and he chose to postpone the launch rather than risk a public failure. Fields' decision was influenced by Mulally's emphasis on producing high-quality products and his uncertainty about the new CEO's expectations. Mark Fields, a Ford executive, was faced with a difficult decision regarding a problem with the Ford Edge that could potentially delay its shipment. Fields weighed his options, considering the risks of telling the truth about the issue versus keeping it hidden, knowing that transparency wasn't encouraged at Ford at the time and could result in losing his job. Despite the risks, Fields decided to be transparent and presented the issue at a Thursday BPR meeting, using a red chart to indicate the problem, which was a bold move considering the company culture. To everyone's surprise, Alan Mulally, the CEO, responded positively to Fields' transparency, praising his great visibility and asking the team, "Who can help Mark with that?" This question marked the beginning of the team's education in the outward mindset, as colleagues began to offer help and support to Fields in addressing the issue. The following week, Fields was still the only one with a red chart, but as Mulally continued to encourage transparency and teamwork, others began to follow Fields' lead, and soon the charts around the room were filled with red and yellow, indicating a shift in the team's mindset. The team continued to work together, regularly reporting on their responsibilities and challenges and offering help and support to one another, which ultimately contributed to Ford's successful turnaround and its ability to navigate the 2007-2008 financial crisis without needing federal assistance. The story highlights the three elements of the outward mindset pattern, which were instrumental in Ford's success and ultimately led to Mark Fields succeeding Alan Mulally as CEO. Seeing others. The first step in the outward mindset pattern is to see the needs, objectives, and challenges of others, as well as the organization as a whole, which was achieved by Alan Mulally's team at Ford through the Business Plan Review, BPR process. The BPR process gave team members visibility into their own contribution to the whole and into the needs, objectives, challenges, and activities of their colleagues, allowing them to engage with an outward mindset. Mulally's outward mindset was crucial in yielding the benefits of the BPR process as he worked with his team and conducted meetings with this mindset. The second step in the outward mindset pattern is adjusting one's work to become more helpful to others, which naturally follows the first step, and Mulally encouraged his team to take responsibility for their impact on their colleagues' ability to successfully fulfill their responsibilities. The third step in the outward mindset pattern is measuring impact, which Mulally's team achieved by gathering together each week to assess whether the adjustments being made were actually helping, and making necessary adjustments. The turnaround at Ford depended on the teams engaging in each step of the outward mindset pattern: see others, adjust efforts, and measure impact. The outward mindset pattern can be applied in various organizations, as seen in the example of a large power company that worked with Arbinger to reduce the time spent on planning the next year's capital budget. The power company's leaders used an outward mindset diagram to break down the budgeting process into its component parts, identify the people and groups affected, and list their needs, objectives, and challenges. By using this approach, the leaders were able to see themselves correctly in relation to others and begin seeing others more clearly, positioning them to start making adjustments to become more helpful to others. The text describes a scenario where different groups within an organization, including the planning team, engineering team, and others, were given the opportunity to ask questions and learn about each other's needs, objectives, challenges, and activities. The planning team, responsible for initiating the budgeting process, typically took 4 months to finalize their plans, which were then passed on to the engineering team on May 1st, and so on. However, when people began asking questions to understand the planner's needs and objectives, the planners became interested in the needs and objectives of their questioners, leading to a conversation that revealed a significant discovery. The planners realized that they knew 80–90% of the projects that would go into the final plan by mid-January, and it took another 3.5 months to finalize the last 10–20%. This discovery led to a change in the process, where the planners would forward individual projects to the engineering team as soon as they were known, rather than waiting until all projects were finalized, resulting in a 3-month reduction in the budgeting timeline. The text suggests that this change could have happened earlier, but it required a framework that made the solutions within the organization discoverable, which was achieved through opportunities to see others and understand their needs and objectives. The text also references Alan Mullally's business process re-engineering, BPR, process at Ford, which provided an occasion for the executive team to learn to see each other through weekly meetings. Journalist Brenda Euland's essay on listening is also referenced, highlighting the importance of listening as a creative force that can help people unfold and expand and create new ideas. Euland's description of her former way of interacting with others, where she would try to be lively and say bright things, is contrasted with her later approach, where she learned to be interested in others and listen to them, leading to more meaningful interactions. Brenda Euland and Rob Dylan. Brenda Euland and Rob Dylan experienced a significant shift in their mindset, from being self-focused to being others-focused, which greatly impacted their interactions with others. Before the shift, Brenda Euland would often find herself arguing or changing the subject in social gatherings, but she learned to listen with affection and be in others' shoes, adopting an attitude of "tell me more." Rob Dylan, the fourth-generation leader of Dylan Floral, initially detested in-person customer visits, as he felt pressured to sell products to struggling customers, but after learning the power of really seeing others, he began to focus on helping them instead. Rob's new approach involved going into meetings with customers with the sole intention of figuring out how he could help them, which started with trying to understand their needs, objectives, and challenges. As a result of this shift, Rob now spends 1 to 2 days a week calling on customers, has discovered that he loves it, and has seen clients return to Dylan Floral and others renew their commitment to the partnership. Rob's approach is characterized by a willingness to learn, listen, and empathize with customers, and he has found that there is nothing to fear when he is genuinely interested in helping others. Adjusting efforts. The second step in the outward mindset pattern, as demonstrated by Rob's experience, is adjusting efforts to be more helpful to others, which naturally follows from being genuinely interested in seeing others. Terry Olson's experience with public school teachers illustrates the outward mindset pattern in action, as he helped them find ways to handle a challenging student by adjusting their efforts to better meet the student's needs. The story revolves around a challenging student named Toby, who frequently misbehaves and runs away from his classroom, causing chaos and disrupting the school environment. Terry, a workshop facilitator, suggests to the teachers that Toby's behavior might be a result of him resisting being treated like an object, rather than responding to the punishment itself. Terry advises the teachers to consider a different approach by asking themselves, "If I were to give my heart to this boy, what would occur to me to do?" and acting on their intuition. A teacher takes Terry's advice and, when Toby runs out of the classroom again, she decides not to chase him, but instead goes looking for him and finds him hiding under a blanket in the auditorium. The teacher recalls her childhood memories of playing hide-and-go-seek and, on impulse, gets down on the floor and crawls under the blanket with Toby, starting a game of hide-and-go-seek with him. The teacher continues to play with Toby during recess, and this new approach seems to have a positive impact on his behavior, as he starts to settle down and become more manageable. The teacher reports that she has been different in her approach to Toby, and he seems different to her even when he misbehaves, and that she has learned to respond to him in a more intuitive and helpful way. The story highlights the importance of adopting an outward mindset, where individuals and organizations focus on being helpful and responsive to others, rather than following a formula or trying to control people's behavior. The teacher's experience shows that real helpfulness cannot be made into a formula, and that an outward mindset requires a willingness to be flexible and responsive to the needs of others. The outward mindset is not about adopting a specific behavior, but rather about seeing the needs, challenges, desires, and humanity of others, which naturally leads to adjusting one's efforts in response to those needs. When people see others as people, they respond in human and helpful ways, and with an outward mindset, adjusting one's efforts naturally follows from seeing others in a new way. Measuring impact. Measuring one's impact on others is a key element of the outward mindset pattern, which involves taking responsibility not just for what one does, but also for the impact of what one does. This is illustrated by the story of Charles Jackson, a third-year associate lawyer who attended a leadership course and realized that he had not been overly concerned about two unhappy clients. Charles began to consider the impact of his work on these clients and realized that he had not given their work high enough priority, and that he had not communicated effectively about billing. As a result, Charles decided to return the money to these clients and began tracking his impact on his clients by checking in with them regularly to ensure that he was meeting or exceeding their expectations. This approach, which Charles called self-accountability checks, required only a willingness to stay in regular conversations with others about whether his efforts were helping them or not. By making a disciplined effort to track and hold himself accountable for his impact on his clients, Charles was able to turn his practice around, receiving 7 new client matters per week by July and 13 per week by November, and eventually leaving his job to start his own law firm. The key takeaway is that measuring one's impact on others requires a willingness to stay in regular conversations with others and to take responsibility for the impact of one's actions. The nonprofit organization Hope Arising, which assists orphaned and at-risk children in rural Ethiopia, initially measured their efforts by the output of gallons of clean water delivered, but they realized they didn't know if they were meeting the actual needs of the children. To measure their impact, the Hope Arising team began to consider what the people they were helping wanted to achieve with the clean water, and they started talking to villagers across the region to find out. The villagers expressed that they needed clean water so their kids could go to school, as dirty water made them sick and caused them to miss school, which in turn affected the traveling school teachers' income and the children's education. This revelation led the Hope Arising team to find a new metric to measure their impact: the number of days children are in school, which they could easily obtain from local governments. The team also realized that they weren't just in the water delivery business, but in the business of helping kids get to school, which opened up new ways for them to help beyond just delivering clean water. The story of Hope Arising illustrates that engaging in the first 2 steps of the outward mindset pattern is not enough. Measuring the impact of efforts on the objectives of those being served is crucial to adjusting and serving others well. Turning outward, the most important move. The story is contrasted with the example of Jack Hawk, the founder and CEO of Tubular Steel, who worked with Arbinger to address the toxic infighting in his senior management team by helping each team member reassess their contribution to the challenges they faced. Jack's approach involved considering the statement, "As far as I am concerned, the problem is me," which helped the team members to take responsibility for their actions and work towards a solution. The concept of turning outward in mindset is crucial for solving organizational problems, but it requires individuals to acknowledge their own contributions to the issues at hand. Jack, an executive, struggled to apply this concept to himself, instead trying to impose it on others, which was met with resistance. The story of Ford, led by Alan Mulally, illustrates the importance of individuals taking responsibility for their role in the company's problems rather than waiting for others to change. The biggest obstacle to mindset change is the natural inclination to wait for others to change before making any changes oneself. To overcome this, individuals must be willing to change their mindset and behavior without expecting others to reciprocate. This capability to change one's mindset and behavior unilaterally is the essence of true leadership, but it is a rare occurrence. Diagram 14 illustrates the most important move in mindset work, which is to put down one's resistance and begin to act in the way one wants others to act, even if they are not yet willing to change. The goal of shifting mindsets is to get everyone turned toward each other. But this can only be achieved if individuals are prepared to turn their mindsets toward others without expectation of change from others. Jack Hawk and tubular steel. The inward mindset inclination to wait for others to change before making any changes oneself is a natural trap that can prevent progress in organizations, leading to a stalemate where everyone waits for someone else to make the first move. Jack Hawk, the leader of Tubular, initially had an inward mindset that led his leadership team, particularly his right-hand man Larry Heights, to adopt a self-focused and protective posture. Unbeknownst to Jack, Larry had already planned to leave the company due to his frustrations with Jack's leadership style and had begun secretly recruiting the company's best employees to start a competitor organization. After Larry's departure, Jack began to reflect on his own role in the company's problems and started making changes to his leadership approach, both at home and at work. Larry, who had built a successful new company using the lessons he learned from Jack, heard about Jack's efforts to change and began to consider rejoining him. 1 year after leaving, Larry called Jack and expressed his desire to return to Tubular and help turn the company around, which Jack agreed to. Larry returned to Tubular and worked with a small team to develop and implement an outward approach across the organization, which led to positive changes, one person and department at a time. A significant challenge in implementing the outward approach was the long-standing conflict between the sales and credit departments, each with their own compelling story and justification for their actions. The sales team felt undermined by the credit team's strict application of rules and policies, while the credit team felt responsible for protecting the company from bad debt. The two departments were essentially pulling on opposite ends of the same rope, with each side's success dependent on the other's failure, making it difficult for them to adopt an outward mindset and work together effectively. Al Klein, the head of the credit department, realized that a change in approach was necessary to meet the company's objectives while enabling the sales team to be successful. Al and his team began to consider the needs and challenges of the sales team, leading them to devise a new objective: maintaining bad debt at 2.5% of the company's revenues in a way that helps the sales team achieve their objectives. This new objective required the credit department to find ways to be helpful to the sales department, leading to a new level of initiative and creativity from the credit team. Within a week, the sales team noticed the change and praised the credit team for their ability to work with customers to help them qualify. The change in approach by Al and his team was similar to the changes made by Jack and Larry, who also began to focus on the needs of others and find ways to be different to improve the company's results. By focusing on the needs of others, Jack, Larry, and Al were able to overcome challenges without demanding that others reciprocate, leading to a more effective and collaborative work environment. The changes led to a cultural shift within the company, with employees devising and implementing new ways of working that were more effective than before. As a result, the company, Tubular, produced the best return on investment in the industry, grew from $30 million to over $100 million, and more than quadrupled its profit, despite a declining market. The success of the company was attributed to the fact that Jack, Larry, and others like Al did not wait for others to change, but instead took the initiative to change themselves and find ways to be more helpful to others. Building an outward mindset culture. A company committed to building an outward mindset culture will help its people make and maintain a shift to an outward mindset, even when others haven't yet made the shift, as those with an inward mindset won't be able to stay with the organization. The change to an outward mindset doesn't happen overnight, and people who usually operate with an outward mindset may sometimes slip back to an inward mindset, while customers may also have an inward mindset at times. Being able to operate with an outward mindset when others do not is a critically important ability, as widespread mindset change happens in response to those who change first. Some people are afraid to make this move because they think others may take advantage of them. But an outward mindset doesn't make a person blind to reality or soft on bad behavior. Rather, it stays fully alive to and aware of others. An outward mindset doesn't make people soft. It makes them smart, open, curious, and aware, as seen in people who work in high-risk situations like Navy SEALs and SWAT team members. An inward mindset can lead to softer behaviors, such as indulging or pacifying others, while an outward mindset can lead to harder behaviors when necessary, such as direct actions to help others improve and grow. Leaders who are paralyzed by fear of their people's reaction to a mindset change effort often dip a toe in and then decide not to proceed based on a lukewarm response, but this is because their people see the leader's tepid response and react accordingly. The principle to apply is that the problem starts with oneself, and others' responses will depend mostly on what they see in the leader, so leaders should take the initiative to make the change to an outward mindset. Officer Matt Tomasic and the Kansas City West Side Officer Matt Tomasic of the Kansas City Police Department was involved in a situation where he witnessed a man assaulting a woman, and local men intervened to protect him, illustrating the positive impact of mindset change in the community. The story begins with a long-standing issue in the Kansas City West Side, where a corner had become an ad hoc hiring site for day laborers, attracting large numbers of men, including some with a criminal element, leading to increased crime and community concerns. The Kansas City Police Department, KCPD, initially responded with a zero-tolerance policy, employing overwhelming force and aggressive neighborhood sweeps. But this approach failed to improve the situation, with arrested individuals often returning to the same location within a day. Officer Matt Tomasic, who was leading the zero-tolerance approach, was given an ultimatum by his boss to clean up the area within 2 weeks, but he felt ready to give up and consider a transfer to an easier assignment. However, a conversation with his civilian colleague, Linda Callan, prompted Matt to shift his perspective and consider the lives and struggles of the men involved, including their uncertainty about work, basic necessities, and access to restrooms and food. This moment marked a turning point, as Matt began to think about the men in a different way, setting the stage for a mindset change that would ultimately lead to a more effective approach to addressing the community's issues. Matt, a police officer, was initially trying to change the behavior of men on the west side of Kansas City, but with little success until Linda invited him to consider their needs and objectives with an outward mindset. By thinking about the men's issues, Matt and Linda started providing basic necessities like a restroom and food, which marked the beginning of a series of changes in their approach. They began to see the men as people and discovered ways to be helpful, such as staging the hiring of day laborers out of the community center and providing neighborhood services. Matt spent time working alongside the men, building trust, and changing the community's views of the police, and he started measuring his impact based on the men's productivity rather than the number of arrests. Another officer, Octavio Chato Villalobos, joined Matt and adopted a similar approach, which involved building relationships and treating people with unconditional respect. The initiative led to a significant reduction in crime and revitalization of the community, making it a national success story and demonstrating the effectiveness of addressing problems with an outward mindset. The police department's initial approach of using overwhelming force had failed, but Matt and Chato's slow work on mindset ultimately led to positive change. The story highlights the importance of mindset work, which is often misunderstood as a waste of time, but is actually essential for creating lasting change. Mindset change in action. A multinational company was experiencing a long-standing labor management dispute that was about to go to arbitration. But a 2-day workshop helped the leaders resolve the issue in just 45 minutes. The workshop began with 2 days of mindset training for 20 management leaders and 10 labor leaders, focusing on improving their mindset towards their work and each other. On the last hour of the second day, the group was split into labor and management, and each side was given 3 questions to consider: the needs and challenges of the other group, what they could adjust to be more helpful, and how to measure their impact. After 20 minutes, the groups came together and presented their responses, leading to an earnest and outward discussion that showed real interest in and concern for the other's needs and issues. The leaders were able to resolve their conflict themselves, with no guidance from the workshop facilitators, and strengthened their working relationship and trust in each other. This example illustrates that starting with a mindset change can lead to quick behavioral transformations, and that addressing mindset is often the faster approach to change. The authors suggest doing a mindset check before applying behavioral solutions, asking questions such as, have I thought this through with an outward mindset? Do I understand the needs and challenges of those involved? Have I adjusted my efforts accordingly? And have I been holding myself accountable for my impact? The chapter concludes by referencing various organizations that have successfully built outward mindset cultures, including the San Antonio Spurs, Ford, and the Westside Community Action Network Center in Kansas City, among others. The collective result. A key factor that enables organizations to adopt an outward mindset is the pursuit of a collective result, which involves everyone working together towards a common goal that is bigger than individual interests. This collective result requires collaboration and mutual effort, fostering an outward mindset and encouraging individuals to work together to achieve a shared objective. Examples of organizations that have successfully adopted this approach include Chip Huth's SWAT team, which focused on building respectful relationships with the community, and Mark Balliff and Paul Hubbard's company, which aimed to enrich 1 million lives every 10 years. Greg Popovich and the San Antonio Spurs exemplify this approach by prioritizing egoless teamwork to win championships, while Bill Bartman's company focuses on helping debtors and Alan Mullally's team works towards making the best cars in the world with profitable growth for all. Other organizations, such as Tubular Steel, Matt Tomasik's team, and Louise Francesconi's company, have also adopted this approach by empowering everyone to contribute to a collective goal. Whether it's improving profitability, making a community a safe and clean place to live, or building an outward mindset culture, the collective result serves as a unifying force, allowing individuals with different personalities, work styles, and strengths to work together towards a common objective, as emphasized by Louise Francesconi. Every organization, whether a large enterprise or a frontline team, already exists as a collective, and a collective result is waiting to be named, collaborated around, and worked towards. In many organizations, individuals identify primarily with their separate roles, lacking an understanding of how their roles contribute to the overall collective result of the organization. This limited perspective can be due to the organization not being explicitly organized around a collective result, or leaders not clearly communicating the impact of individual roles on the overall result. Clarifying the collective result enables individuals and teams to improve their contributions without needing directives from others, allowing them to self-align and take responsibility for implementing the outward mindset pattern. Even in organizations not built around a collective result, individuals can define their own role in terms of a collective result by using the outward mindset at work diagram as a template. To redefine their role, individuals can ask themselves questions such as, toward their manager, what are my manager's objectives, and how can I contribute to achieving them? Toward their customers, who are my customers, and how can I help them achieve their objectives? Toward their peers, which peers are affected by my work, and am I helping or hindering them? Toward their direct reports, are my direct reports growing in their abilities, and do they understand how their work impacts others? By rethinking their work in the context of achieving a collective result, individuals can begin to see themselves as contributors to the organization's overall success, regardless of their position or role. Leaders and executives can also work with their teams or departments to create a guiding framework that a collective result provides, establishing a foundation for outward mindset working across the organization. Building an outward mindset organization. To sustain an outward mindset culture, a guiding result that requires all employees to work together on behalf of others is necessary, and with this, concrete steps can be taken to build such a culture. One key step is to allow people to be fully responsible, which means empowering them with the responsibility to both execute and plan their work, rather than just following a plan created by leaders. This approach is in contrast to the traditional division of labor concept, which separates people into thinkers and doers, and can lead to a lack of accountability and blame shifting. According to social thinker Hannah Arendt, this division of labor has been influenced by Plato's ideas and has been perpetuated in government, military, and corporate structures for thousands of years. In an outward mindset culture, leaders position people to be fully responsible. which means giving them the autonomy to plan and execute their work, rather than just following orders. An example of this approach is illustrated in the story of John and Sylvia Harris, who changed their approach to family chores by involving their children in the planning process rather than just assigning tasks to them. By doing so, the children became more invested in the process and took more responsibility for completing their tasks, leading to improved relationships and a more harmonious home environment. The key takeaway from this example is that by giving people the autonomy to plan and execute their work, leaders can create a culture of accountability and responsibility, rather than one of blame shifting and lack of accountability. Allowing people to be fully responsible organizations that operate with an outward mindset allow and encourage their employees to engage their whole brains, including their wills and hearts, in the planning and doing of their work. This approach enables employees to exercise their whole selves, leading to increased productivity and job satisfaction. Dan Funk, the new leader of a dysfunctional healthcare facility, encountered a team that was unresponsive to his initial invitations to break free from their entrenched ways of working. Dan tried to brainstorm with the leadership team, but they were initially unresponsive due to the controlling and inwardly focused nature of the previous management. The previous management had stifled the employees' ability to see and respond to the needs of others, causing this ability to atrophy and die. Dan changed his approach by building relationships with employees at every level, soliciting their ideas and helping them see possibilities for themselves. He resisted the temptation to impose his own ideas and instead allowed employees to implement their own ideas, which often turned out to be better than his own. By empowering employees to implement their own ideas, Dan saw an increase in energy and motivation among the team members. The joy and sense of impact experienced by the team members became contagious, leading to a positive change in the facility's culture. However, some employees were so numb to the needs around them that they struggled to fully engage in helpful and productive ways, and Dan had to consider letting one employee go. The story highlights the importance of creating an environment where employees feel empowered to contribute and make a positive impact, and the need for leaders to resist imposing their own ideas and instead allow employees to take ownership of their work. Dan, a leader, recounts a story of an employee who approached him with a desire to expand her responsibilities, which led to her successfully building relationships with a nearby hospital and increasing patient admissions to the facility. Dan realized that he had previously underestimated the employee's abilities and made assumptions about others' capabilities without giving them opportunities, which he now regrets and has learned from. Dan concluded that as a leader, his job is not to have all the solutions, but to allow others to think and come up with their own solutions, and that his effectiveness is measured by what those he leads are able to accomplish. Collapsing distinctions. The concept of an outward mindset in an organization involves individuals and teams focusing their efforts outward to be more helpful and self-managing, leading to increased productivity. One way to achieve this is by shrinking distinctions between leaders and others in the organization, eliminating trappings of difference that create barriers to building an outward organization. Trappings of difference refer to outward manifestations of status that only certain individuals can enjoy, such as exclusive offices or privileges, which can create resentment and undermine efforts to build an outward organization. Leaders with an outward mindset possess humility and recognize that others matter just as much as they do, leading them to question and collapse unnecessary distinctions between themselves and others. This approach can be applied in various environments, including workplaces and families, where leaders and parents can inspire devotion and positive change by minimizing privileges and living by the same set of rules as others. Examples of successful leaders who have implemented this approach include Alan Mulally, who led positive change at Boeing and Ford by collapsing the trappings of leadership and presenting himself as approachable and humble. By shrinking distinctions and eliminating trappings of difference, leaders can create an environment where mindset change is more likely to succeed and where individuals can work together more effectively to achieve common goals. It is essential to note that while there may be differences in responsibilities and activities between leaders and others, minimizing privileges and living by the same set of rules can help to build trust and inspire devotion. Examples of collapsing distinctions. Leaders with an outward mindset demonstrate noticeable change by questioning the privileges they reserve for themselves and instead focus on connecting with their coworkers at all levels of the organization. An example of this is a leader who eats lunch in the company cafeteria instead of the executive dining room, showing interest in listening to and learning from employees on the assembly line as much as from the executive team. To prompt such changes, leaders can ask themselves questions like whether they need prime parking spots, the best office spaces, or separate cafeterias, and whether perks enjoyed by a few can be made available to others. The outward mindset pattern can guide leaders in questioning traditions and practices in their organization, considering the experience of others, and making adjustments to help others feel valued and understood. Leaders can ask questions like what it's like to be an employee, whether employees feel valued and appreciated, and what distinctions in the workplace might be troubling to them. They can also consider what adjustments can be made to help others understand how they value and appreciate them, and what trappings of leadership can be removed to collapse distinctions between leadership and others. Measuring the impact of these changes and continuously reassessing distinctions is crucial, including staying connected to employees, collecting feedback, and checking themselves as leaders to avoid unnecessary separations. An example of this is Scott O'Neill, who led the sports division of Madison Square Garden, MSG, and his leadership team, who realized that the people who most felt seen as objects were the ticket takers and ushers who interact with customers, and began making efforts to learn their names and backgrounds to collapse distinctions in their treatment. The leaders at Madison Square Garden, MSG, recognized the importance of valuing all employees, including part-time staff, as much as season ticket holders and sponsors. They implemented initiatives to collapse distinctions between leadership, full-time staff, and part-time staff, such as adopting the mantra, "If you see a piece of paper on the ground, pick it up," which promoted a "we are in this together" mentality throughout the organization. A healthcare client discovered that the people who felt most like objects were the ancillary staff, who were the first point of contact for patients and shaped their initial experience. The healthcare client's leaders realized that the patient experience could be no better than the experience of the ancillary staff, and they began to rethink the differences in their workplace. Richard Sheridan and his colleagues at Menlo Innovations successfully collapsed distinctions in their workplace by working together in a single-space environment where everyone's desk is the same and meetings are held in the same space. Menlo Innovations CEO, Richard Sheridan, sits at a table in the middle of the space rather than in a corner office, and is sometimes moved to a different location to be closer to the action. The company has also collapsed the trappings of the company, with a humble office location in a basement that was once a food court and mall. Scaling mindset change. When leaders begin to collapse distinctions between themselves and others, they are positioned to begin scaling mindset change. An important aspect of leading successful mindset change is a willingness to reconsider the objectives, systems, policies, and processes of an organization, and to design them from an outward mindset perspective. Systems and processes that are designed to manage objects rather than empower people have widespread negative consequences, and rethinking them can deliver huge benefits, as seen in the story of the Harris family, who improved their planning process and relationships within the family. The Harris family's new approach to handling failures and successes established an outward mindset process that inspired and supported outward mindset working. Diagrams 18 and 19 represent two organizations with the same general categories of systems and processes, but with different mindsets. Inward-facing triangles for an inward mindset organization, and outward-facing triangles for an outward mindset organization. Inward mindset systems and processes are designed and implemented by those who see employees as objects, inviting and reinforcing an inward mindset throughout the organization. Outward mindset systems and processes, on the other hand, are developed and executed by those who see people in the organization as people, recognizing their abilities and desires to be helpful and accountable. These outward mindset systems invite, reinforce, and sustain an outward mindset culture throughout the organization. Rethinking systems and processes. If an organization tells its people to operate with an outward mindset but persists in implementing inward mindset systems and processes, the systems and processes will ultimately prevail, leading to negative consequences for the organization and its stakeholders. The example of a forced distribution or bell curve ranking system illustrates how inward mindset systems can undermine outward mindset efforts, as employees are pitted against each other for limited rewards and recognition. A new manager in an internationally dispersed security team within a PC tech giant initially made progress in helping team members develop an outward mindset. But the team's behavior reverted to inward mindset patterns as the end of the year approached and performance reviews loomed. The team members' behavior changed because they knew that the performance review system would pit them against each other, with limited rewards and recognition available, leading them to prioritize their own interests over collaboration and teamwork. Some companies struggle to see viable alternatives to inward mindset systems, despite the negative consequences they can have on organizational culture and performance. A bell curve performance rating system forces managers to rank employees relative to each other, rather than evaluating their actual productivity and results, which can lead to inaccurate assessments of employee performance. This approach can result in a huge organizational cost, as it may not accurately reflect an employee's true value to the organization, and can lead to the loss of talented employees or the retention of underperforming ones. Organizations often adopt forced distribution approaches to counteract rating inflation, where managers may inflate employee ratings due to personal biases or a lack of leadership responsibilities. However, even within a forced distribution system, managers can still operate with an outward mindset by teaching their team about the outward mindset at work framework and encouraging them to hold themselves accountable for their impact. Managers can meet regularly with their team to help them improve their work and increase their level of self-accountability, which can lead to growth and development, even within a flawed system. Structural impediments such as inwardly focused success metrics can hinder outward mindset working and can create perverse incentives that reward inward behavior. Tom Brakens and Landa Corporation. The story of Tom Brakens, a top sales leader at Landa Corporation, illustrates the power of an outward mindset, as he and his team were able to turn around a struggling account and become the client's top preferred supplier through their focus on helping the customer. Despite the success of Brakens and his team, the organization's inwardly focused success metrics may not have rewarded their outward mindset approach. Highlighting the need for alignment between organizational goals and incentives, Brack, a salesperson at Landa, was working on a contract renewal deal with Julie, a customer, which had a budget and was expected to be easy to close. The deal was significant for Brack and his team, as it would help them meet their numbers and also satisfy an internal Landa metric that required salespeople to close renewal contracts by the renewal date at 105% or more of the prior contract amount. Failure to meet this metric would result in severe penalties to compensation, which led salespeople to grant concessions they wouldn't normally give to close deals on time. Brack and Julie worked out a $66 million renewal contract by early December, representing a nearly $10 million discount, which Brack felt was a good business decision for both parties. However, Julie's finance person questioned the deal, claiming Landa was taking advantage of them, leading to a delay and increased pressure on Brack to meet the December 31st deadline. As the deadline approached, Brack and his team felt anxious and gave in to pressure, approving an additional $6 million in cuts to lower the contract to $60 million, which was not made for the benefit of the customer. The internal metric at Landa created unintended consequences, prioritizing meeting the metric over the customer's needs and leading to a focus on self-interest rather than the customer's interests. The situation highlights how internal metrics can produce negative consequences when put into practice, despite being designed to achieve a specific goal. Landa's sales team, led by Tom Brack, was working on a large deal with Julie's company, but their focus on meeting an internal metric led to a transaction-based sale rather than a relationship-based approach. The internal metric, which had no connection to the customer's needs, caused Brack to prioritize meeting the metric over the customer's requirements, ultimately damaging the relationship with Julie and her team. When Julie suddenly became unresponsive, Brack's team panicked and the deal was eventually signed 2 weeks late, missing the internal metric and resulting in serious repercussions, including the removal of Brack from the account. The customer, despite receiving huge discounts, demanded that Brack be removed from the account, and Landa's relationship with the client began to deteriorate. Brack reflected on the experience, stating that the inward focus on the internal metric messed us up both internally and externally, and led to a loss of trust among employees, with about 20 people losing their motivation and quitting on the company. The story highlights the importance of balancing internal metrics with a focus on the customer's needs, as seen in the contrasting example of Hope Arising, which shifted its focus from measuring success by the amount of clean water delivered to measuring the number of days children spent in school. The key takeaway is that internal metrics should be aligned with the customer's needs, and an inward focus without a counterbalancing focus on the customer can lead to negative consequences, both internally and externally. Measuring success. The main difference between organizations with an inward mindset and those with an outward mindset lies in how they measure success, with inward mindset organizations focusing on revenue, and outward mindset organizations focusing on the positive impact they have on their customers. Leaders of inward mindset organizations may struggle to understand and replicate the systems and processes of outward mindset organizations, which can become a competitive advantage for the latter. Organizations that adopt an outward mindset approach can achieve and sustain higher levels of performance, as seen in examples such as Louise Francesconi's planning process, CFS2's customer service processes, Ford's reporting practices, and Tubular Steel's industry-leading performance. Various organizational systems, structures, and processes, including hiring and onboarding, sales and marketing, budgeting, incentive structures, and performance evaluation, can be designed and implemented in either an inward mindset or outward mindset way. Organizations that are serious about operating with an outward mindset turn these systems and processes outward to invite and reinforce outward mindset working. The ripple effect of an outward mindset. One person changing to an outward mindset can invite change in others, even if they don't directly cause it, as people are more likely to respond positively to those who show genuine concern and care for them. A story shared by a woman in an Arbinger training event illustrates the impact of outward mindset behavior, as she recounts how her family's ordeal and subsequent shame were alleviated by the kindness and concern of others, highlighting the potential for outward mindset behavior to create positive change. The author shares a personal story about a family gathering where their older brother, who had been in prison, showed up after a few decades, causing strain and discomfort among the family members. The brother eventually left and the family felt relieved, but the author realized they were close to losing him again and decided to maintain a connection by writing him a letter every month, despite not hearing back from him. This story illustrates the importance of having an outward mindset, which involves showing consideration and care for others, even when it's difficult or not reciprocated. Having an outward mindset can be easy when surrounded by people who care about and consider us, but it's more challenging when interacting with someone who has an inward mindset. An inward mindset in one person can invite others to respond in kind, leading to a struggle that can last a long time, but it's possible to respond with an outward mindset even in such situations. The author notes that an outward mindset in one person can invite the same in others, citing Brenda Euland's teaching that we unfold in the presence of people who show consideration and care. The story of Mark Belief, a young worker who struggled with his boss, is mentioned as an example of how to respond with an outward mindset in challenging situations, although the details of his story are not provided in this section. Mark Baliff and his boss. The author emphasizes the importance of maintaining an outward mindset, even when it's difficult, and notes that it's possible to make a positive impact on others by showing consideration and care, even if it's not reciprocated. Mark, a young professional, felt increasingly disenchanted with his job after 2 years, feeling held back, overlooked, and unappreciated by his boss, which led to frustration and anger. Mark's perception was that his boss didn't think he had anything more to offer, and he started planning his exit, but a meeting with his mentor, his boss's boss, changed his perspective. In the meeting, Mark's mentor told him that the organization needed more from him, which was not what Mark had anticipated, and he was initially defensive, but the conversation led him to reevaluate his actions. Mark reflected on his past behavior and realized that he had been avoiding his boss, criticizing her and withholding effort, and that his internal narrative about his boss was affecting his interactions with her. Mark questioned his narrative and wondered if it was true, which led him to create a list of ways he had been unhelpful to his boss and ways he could help, and this exercise freed him from his negative mindset. Mark realized that he was primarily responsible for holding himself back and that he had the capability to do more, and he began implementing changes which led to a career-changing experience. Mark discovered that his boss's boss was right. The organization did need more from him, and he was capable of more, and he learned that he had been using his difficulties with his boss as justifications for his own lack of effort. Mark's experience taught him that he had always been free to do more and better, and that his constraints were mostly his own, and he was able to break free from his negative mindset and take control of his career. Mark Balif's success can be attributed to his mentor who cared enough to provide honest feedback, which led to Mark's growth and eventual co-founding of a company that has positively impacted millions of lives. The power of what can I do to be more helpful? The central question that emerged from Mark's story is, what can I do to be more helpful in various areas of life, including work and home, and being willing to act on the answers despite challenges? An outward mindset is characterized by a willingness to ask this question and take action, as seen in stories throughout the book, such as Chip and his SWAT squad, Alan Mullally saving Ford, and a woman reaching out to her brother after his release from prison. When interacting with others, whether at work or home, one can approach the situation with either an inward or outward mindset, which significantly impacts the results. To adopt an outward mindset, consider the following steps. Start with mindset and apply the SAM pattern. See others, adjust efforts, and measure impact. Don't wait for others to change. Instead, focus on turning your own mindset. Mobilize yourself and your team or organization to achieve a collective goal. Allow people to be fully responsible and own their work, plans, actions, and impact. Eliminate unnecessary distinctions that create distance between yourself and others. Rethink systems and processes to create an organizational ecosystem that energizes people rather than manages objects. Summary of key concepts. The Outward Mindset document discusses various approaches and patterns for improving performance, relationships, and responsibilities in personal and professional settings. Key concepts include the problem is me principle, which involves taking responsibility for one's impact on others, and the problem is you approach, which focuses on blaming others for problems. The document highlights the importance of self-accountability checks, self-assessment, and self-deception in personal growth and development. It also explores the role of leaders and their impact on profitability, as well as the importance of redefining one's role and responsibilities in the workplace. The SAM approach, Special Attention Review, SAR, and Outward Mindset at Work framework are mentioned as strategies for improving teamwork and collaboration. Case studies and examples from various organizations, including Ford Motor Company, the San Antonio Spurs, and Tubular Steel, are used to illustrate the application of outward mindset principles. The document emphasizes the importance of transparency, trust, and respect in building strong relationships and achieving success. It also touches on the concept of whole selves and the need to consider the well-being and needs of all individuals in the workplace.